Let's get talking. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. I'm your boy Carl E. Long here, and I am on episode number 62 of the podcast. I am so glad that you are joining me again for the podcast of Let's Talk. And it's time to talk. It's time to talk. Hope you're having a wonderful week. It is July 4th week. What is today? July the 2nd? July the 1st here. And I'm up late. And I said, let's get this thing recorded, And I want to get this done. When I get an idea for a podcast, I'm pretty much want to get it taken care of because it's fresh on my mind. Topics are in my head and I got to talk. Yeah. So this podcast here is really coming from a rebuttal from my podcast episode number 61, where I was talking about the Voters' Rights Act and how the comments that I got, man, I'm telling you, it was really something to behold. It was something to behold. So I want to talk about it because some of the comments were alarming. Some of them were scary. Some of them were funny, but some of them were sad too. So, and there was one particular video that I did. Whenever we do podcasts, we do a lot of clips from the podcast. Because if you're doing a YouTube, like I do a YouTube, and I also do an audio, we always break them up into little clips and spread them around so you can just like start the conversation kind of thing and get you kind of engaged. And I had one clip, and this one clip just went viral. I mean, it was on 4 platforms. It probably got over 100,000 comments, or not comments, or actions, I should say, on this one video. So I'm going to play it for you, and then we're going to talk about it. But today's episode is, we're tired of explaining the pain. The hurt is real. The history is real. The fight continues. This is Let's Talk with Carl E. Long, episode number 62. We're tired of explaining the pain. We're tired of it. I'm tired of it. I want it to go away. I want this Trump administration to go away. And let's get America back to where we had it before, where it was actually progressing. Very well, I might say, until a certain Donald J. Trump became president again. Biggest mistake you ever did if you voted for him. Yes, biggest mistake you ever did. Yes, you did. So let's play this video that caused all the uproar from my last episode. Here we go. As a Black American, why does it sometimes feel like every time we start making progress, every time we build something, every time we gain a little momentum, something comes along that feels like it pushes us back? What is it about us as people that makes other people so uncomfortable? We are very resilient people. We've given so much to society, and we love people. We love, and we do our own thing. We try to stay out of people's way. Like just when we finally catch our breath, another obstacle shows up, another barrier, another setback. All right, so that was the little clip. Now, when you do little clips like that, and I have to give them a little bit of grace because they didn't listen to my podcast, obviously. But what I was talking about in that particular clip was what's setting us back was the whole gerrymandering thing and the rollback of the Voters' Rights Act. And I was talking about how we have made such strides in Congress where we have more representation than we've ever had before since Reconstruction. And then they come along and they do this voters' right thing. So I'm like, I felt like that every time we try to make any headway and do what's right and go forward with America, have a seat at the table, we get pushed back. There's always a way. Then I refer to things like Tulsa Every time that we as black people try to advance, you kick us back. And that's what I was trying to make. But the comments, oh my God, it was like they wanted to bring up Chicago and how we killing each other. And this is what's wrong with you as black people. You black on black crime. And it wasn't what I was talking about, but it's what I had to deal with. Those kinds of things, you know. So I was like, okay. So I was trying to relate to them. Listen to the podcast. You'll see what I was talking about. But it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is they came for me for that one phrase of saying, we are black people. We try to stay out of everybody's way. We do our own thing. We advance. We have our own goals and dreams. But every time we make a success or get a little bit of success, there is a spirit out there that wants to say, got too much. And that's kind of the way it was in the Jim Crow era. Whenever you saw a black man running around in a brand new car, whose car is that, boy? Is that your car? You know, we can't have a new car. You know what I mean? So that kind of thinking is what I was trying to convey, is that why is it that when we're successful in anything, you try to kick us back? That's what I was trying to say. And that does happen. It's happened. We built cities in this country. And what do? Send freeways through them. You know, our own little towns. What do? So that's what I was talking about in that context. And here we are again, having to fight to be heard, just have a seat at the table. So that's what this whole podcast today is going to be about, just talking about some of that stuff. So why does justice feel different for black Americans? That'll be my second topic title, if you will. Now let's talk about that phrase, because I saw it over and over and over again in the comments. Carl, stop playing the victim. Can I ask you a question? What exactly does that mean? Seriously, I've thought about it. I prayed about it. I've replayed those comments in my head, and I keep coming back to the same question. When does asking for fairness become playing the victim? When does asking difficult questions become weakness? When does expressing pain become something to ridicule? Because here's what I think has happened. Somewhere along the way, we've confused empathy with agreement. We've convinced ourselves that if we acknowledge someone's pain, we're somehow admitting they're right about everything. It's simply not true. I mean, you can disagree with my conclusions and still understand my emotions. I was emotional in that clip saying, what is it about us that makes you so angry? A certain sector of America, what is it about us that makes you so angry? I don't get it. I don't get it. So my emotions got me, and they came after me, and it kind of hit me for a little bit. It made me upset for a while, and then I started going, oh my God, this sector of people, what are we going to do with them? But those are two different things you can say. Carl, I don't see this case the way you do. I get that. While also saying, but I understand why it's affected you. You don't have to see it the way I do, but can you understand? Can you see the difference? That's empathy. And empathy doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't require you to surrender your beliefs. It simply asks you to recognize someone else's humanity. That's all. You know what I find interesting, though? When tragedy strikes certain communities, America immediately says, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We listen. We comfort. We mourn together. But when black Americans say, this situation has reopened some old wounds, suddenly people become historians, lawyers, political analysts, and psychologists. Instead of saying, tell me why this hurts, they say, you're wrong for hurting. Think about that for a moment. We're telling you with all our mights, we're so tired of being treated this way. But then you treat us like we're whining again. No, we're not whining. History keeps repeating itself, and we're tired of it. Think about that. Have you ever told someone they were wrong for feeling pain? Pain doesn't ask permission. It just shows up. Now, I know somebody watching this is thinking, Carl, everything has pain. I get that. You're absolutely right. Everybody does. White families have pain. Black families have pain. Latino families have Asian families. Native families. Pain doesn't discriminate. But the source of our pain isn't always the same. And if we genuinely care about one another, shouldn't we at least be curious enough to understand those differences? Can you listen to me for a minute? Just for a minute. You keep saying you're tired. Listen to me. You're not listening. Yeah. Here's something I wish every American could understand. Most black Americans aren't waking up every morning looking for racism. We're not. We're waking up trying to raise our families, pay our bills, go to work, love our neighbors, and build a better future. That's what we're trying to do. Simple as that. The overwhelming majority of us aren't looking for reasons to be offended. We're looking for reasons to believe that our children will have opportunities, to believe that they'll be judged fairly, to believe they'll be treated with dignity, and to believe that if something happens, justice will truly be blind. Simple things to ask, what every other American gets. That's all we're asking for. Equalness. Now, those aren't unreasonable hopes. Those are American hopes, guys. And that's why comments like, move on, sting so much. Move on from what? From asking questions, from history, from concern, from experience that shaped our families? Healing doesn't just happen because somebody tells you to heal. You don't get to tell me when I feel good. Healing happens because somebody cared enough to listen. And that's what I think is missing. Listening. Real listening. Not waiting for your turn to talk. Not waiting to type another comment. Listening with the possibility that you might actually learn something. Now let me make something crystal clear. I'm not saying every institution is racist. By no means it's not. I'm not saying every police officer is racist. By no means they are not. I'm not saying every judge is racist. I am saying every white American. I'm not saying every white American is racist. No. Those sweeping statements don't help nobody. Anybody. I mean, life is more complicated than that. People are more complicated than that. What I am saying is every society has blind spots. Every culture has biases it has to confront. We have to confront with the fact that when the Voting Rights, the Civil Rights Act, Education Act, when all those things were passed, there was they didn't even pass overwhelmingly. There was a whole section of America that didn't agree with none of that. I've said this many times. Those people are still here. They have taught their values going forward. They're still here. And they're still making noise. And you can't just say that racism is gone. It is not. Those people are still here. Go out on X. I mean, they let you say anything you want to say out there. They don't care. Those people are still here. And some of them are in our government. They're judges. They're on the Supreme Court. They're business people. They're newscasters. Those people are still here. Megyn Kelly stood on her platform as First Amendment allows her, and she told the Haitians to go home. We don't want you here. Go back to... She did it. Blatantly out. It's her right. First Amendment. But she flies her flag loud and proud. So we already know what she is, and we already know what to expect. Ain't trying to change her. If that's who she is, that's who she is. But hopefully one day her heart will be convicted and she'll understand what she says and how hurtful it is to some people. And she'll have to deal with that with God, not me. I just don't fool with Megyn Kelly. She's kind of strange. She's kind of strange and angry. She's an angry, talk about angry black women. That's an angry white woman right there. So every culture has its biases it has to confront. Every culture. Every generation inherits unfinished work. There's no perfect society. America is no different. The question is, are we willing to do that work? Or are we going to pretend the work no longer exists because talking about it makes us uncomfortable? There was this one guy, those comments were getting so bad, and so crazy. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to shut this down. It's just going too crazy. It was going crazy. So I didn't turn the comments off. What I did was I put it on there. You want to talk to me? You have to follow me. Follow my podcast. Oh, they got angry. So they went into my messenger, my instant messages on Facebook. They went into my messages and started sending me messages. This one guy, he was just so upset. You say let's talk, but you won't even turn your comments. He wanted to say something. So I said, what is it? What do you got to say? So he wanted to tell me to move on and that whole story. My ancestors didn't do this and that. The whole story that we always get, But it was making him uncomfortable that I was talking about my hurt. How I feel as a black American when y'all do these things. And you look and say, it's not about y'all. We're not doing this because you. Yes, you are. When you redo all these maps and cut out the black vote and try to just water us down, what are you doing? What is that for? You can say it's because of tribalness of your party. No. You know that blacks are widely Democrats. So anytime you shut out a Democrat map, you're going to shut out a whole bunch of black people and their voices. And I think you're doing that. Yeah. Discomfort isn't the enemy, guys. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort, One of the things that disappointed me most about the comments wasn't even the disagreement. It was how quickly people dismissed the possibility that someone else's experience might be valid. It's amazing how often we say that never happened, simply because it never happened to us. I even sympathize with the white American that says that they've been left behind. Like, white men feel like they've been bashed for a while. And you have. But I think you deserve a little bit of that bashing because you have been the forefront of everything. And you need a little bashing. I sympathize with how y'all feel and feel like it's like, you're an endangered species. I sympathize with that. Because that's the way you were raised, to be a superior race. But that's not a good thing, guys. You were raised that way. You cannot continue that lifestyle in America. I'm sorry. That party is over. This country is going to be a minority country. That's where the trend is going. And that's why they're so fervently for immigration controls. Not the legal one that everybody should follow the law, which I believe they should follow the law and become in this country legally. They should be doing that. If you're not, you should be deported. I agree with that. Most Democrats agree with that. But the visceral and the way that you guys have taken this to the level of just pure hate, that's a bridge too far. And when you start messing with people's civil rights, that's American rights, and that's going to trigger every black person. I mean, we fight for other people. I mean, this war of immigration is not even largely us. I mean, it's affecting people trying to get in this country for reasons of war and famine in their countries, and they're just targeting black countries. But as far as this war, it's really not our war. And we always end up fighting for everybody. Because we see the injustices, we speak up. Because why? We've lived it. More than any other minority has lived it in this country. And I say in this country because I heard the Holocaust happen, but it didn't happen in this country. It happened in another country. But in this country, we know that. I'm not minimizing any other thing that's happened. But in America, black Americans, we know that. We've lived it. I've lived it. I'm old enough to have lived it, and I've told that story before. Moving into a white neighborhood, I lived the racism. They didn't want us there in 1966. We were spit at in 1966. I was 4 years old, and I lived it. Saw it. When we segregated, integrated schools, I saw the kids, the little white kids throwing rocks and mud at us and like, get away, nigga. I saw that. Me. That was in the 70s in Dallas, Texas. It happened. But things changed. We got to go to school with people. We became friends with our white cat. It changed. It wasn't the best, but at least we were able to coexist and learn about each other. But just to say these things never happened simply because it never happened to you, it's not fair. Imagine telling a cancer patient, I don't believe cancer exists because I've never had it. COVID, remember that? It sounds ridiculous. Yeah, that's how you sometimes treat people's lived experience. I've lived it. If I haven't experienced discrimination, it must not exist. That's the way you do it. If I haven't felt that fear, you must be exaggerating. No, maybe our experiences aren't simply different or simply different. That's okay. Different doesn't automatically mean dishonest. They tell me I'm a liar and I'm a race baiter because I say how I feel. Different doesn't automatically mean divisive. I have a different experience. Native Americans had a different experience. Asian Americans have had a different experience. Latino Americans have had a different experience in America than you have. White America, you had a different experience. You guys had struggles. You went through the Depression. You had poor people. You had all that. But you didn't have a system designed against you. All those groups I just talked about, even though the world says that we could do anything in America, we couldn't do everything. We weren't getting the best jobs. We weren't on TV. You never saw us on TV unless we were in subservient. All those things happened to us. We lived it. Do you understand that? And for you guys to say, move on. No. We move on when you acknowledge and talk about it and understand our experience. It simply means different. Now I want to say something directly to my white viewers because I know many of you watch this podcast. Some of you have been with me since episode 1. You supported me, encouraged me, prayed for me, and I appreciate you more than you know. So hear me when I say this episode is not to attack you. It's an invitation to see through a window you may have never looked through before. You don't have to apologize for being white. You don't have to carry guilt for something you never did. That's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking, something simpler. Walk with us. Listen to us. Ask us questions. Challenge us respectively. And allow us to challenge you respectfully. Because that's how trust is built. Not by pretending our experiences are identical. Because they're not. They're not. Can you acknowledge that? They're not identical. By no means. They're not. Even the poorest of white person in America still didn't have to deal with what we had to deal with. That's true. So pretending our experiences are identical, but by honoring the fact that they're sometimes different, and maybe if we spent more time trying to understand each other's stories instead of trying to win arguments, America would feel a little less divided than it does today. You know, I don't believe our greatest problem is that we disagree. I think our greatest problem is that we've stopped trying to understand why we disagree. And that's a dangerous place for any nation to be, because once understanding disappears, suspicion takes its place, and then resentment, then division, right? And before long, neighbors become strangers, friends become enemies, fellow citizens become opponents. I don't want that, America. I don't. I'm getting ready to celebrate my 50th class reunion. And we've had ones before. I mean, the 10th and the 20th, I went to an integrated school, black and white, Those were heavily attended, the early ones, by our black and white counterparts. But as we got older into the years of 30 and the 40, the white people started doing their own thing and we started doing our own thing. I don't know what happened with that. I think the world started telling us to go back into our corners, and we stopped being a class. But the 50 year, we have made an effort, both white and black together, to get back together. And we're going to come back as a school. We want everybody there for the 50th. And we're working darn hard to make that happen, because we had some great years. We made friends, and I think that it's time that we met in the class reunion setting and be able to talk about some stuff, talk about some things that's happened. Yeah, I believe that that's going to be a great time. Yeah. So, fellow citizens become opponents. Don't want that, America. I believe we're better than that. But becoming better requires honesty, real honesty, not comfortable honesty. Real honesty. Tell me how you feel. Tell me the truth. Why are you so upset that we call the race card when we see it? If you can see it too, that's when you have become an ally to us. And you go, no, that's not right. When you're able to say that's not right and be an ally to me, that's when I love you. And there are a lot of you out there. A lot of you. So we need the kind of honesty that makes us all, myself included, look into the mirror, because none of us have finished growing. None of us have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. And maybe that's exactly where healing begins, with enough humility to admit, I might not know everything. I might not understand everything, but I'm willing to listen. If every American adopted that attitude, I honestly believe this country would look very different. So that's why the comments were so alarming. Nobody from this whole MAGA clan that comes after me, because they know I'm a bleeding liberal. They've called me all kind of things. They wouldn't have a conversation with me. They want to call me names and stuff. Call me a racist. Let's have a conversation. Why do you feel this way? I can't get them there. And trust me, I got a little angry and I came back with some stuff while they were trying to throw blue cities at me, like Chicago and Detroit and Memphis, and how we killed each other. I had to bring back, I was like, you talking about all this? Let's talk about why. Let's talk about this. Why is it that you guys are breeding mass terrorists? White men, white boys are 98% more likely to be a mass shooter than any other demographic group. What is that? Let's talk about that. Why you want to throw all these cities to me? Black on black crime. Yeah, we got some issues. I hate that. We do. I hate that. That's a problem we have to work out. And we're working it out. We don't like it either. But you got some issues as well. Why are you guys raising these kind of boys? What's going on there? So I had to reboot a little bit, and I said some stuff. I got kind of angry. Some of them were being really crazy. But then I started thinking, I got to stop, because, it's not doing any good here, Carl. These people here are not going to change overnight with your podcast. They're just not. But at least I put something, a mustard seed of thought in their mind. I mean, I honestly believe this country would be very different if we would just talk, because listening changes people, listening changes relationships, listening changes nations. And when we come, I want to talk about uh, something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable: history. Not because I want us to live in the past, but because I believe history explains why so many Americans experience the present differently. So we're going to go there. All right. But before we go there, I want to play some of the videos that I always get. You know, I always get some great videos on the white allies that I have. And this one is called "We're Gonna Be All Right." And let's see what he has to say. This is I like to go out and find my Anglo brothers and sisters who are allies, who give great words. So let's listen to what he says and we'll come back.
So I'm sitting here watching the opening of the Obama Presidential Center on TV, and I have seen artists like John Legend and Christina Aguilera, and I think Bruce Springsteen's coming up. And sitting here just watching so many people excited and showing up with love for the Obamas. And then I think about Donald Trump and how the best he could do was Milli Vanilli, Vanilla Ice, and Kid Rock, and some bigoted, racist, misogynistic fighter to say a bunch of on the White House lawn. Right now we are in the eye of a hurricane, and Donald Trump and his criminal regime and his cult members are so loud that things feels hopeless. But when I watch things like this, I realize here's the Obamas 10 years out of office, and there's still so much love for them. Folks, we are on the right side of history. It's just right now the other side has the microphone and they're really loud. And we have to continue to stand up for what's right and stand up for the truth and stand up for freedom and democracy and stand behind decent people like Barack and Michelle Obama. I understand that Michelle Obama is never going to go low. Sometimes I wish she would. Sometimes I wish she would get down in the dirt and really sling back at them. But I totally understand why she doesn't, and I respect her that she doesn't. And so that's why I feel like that it's up to us to keep shouting down this hatred, keep shouting down this racism, keep shouting down these conspiracy theories until MAGA is laughed completely out of the room. And it will happen because the pendulum does swing. If Donald Trump's presidency was a knee-jerk reaction and the pendulum swinging in Donald Trump's direction, I really feel that people are sick and tired of Donald Trump, and that pendulum's going to swing back the other way. And when it does, and MAGA circles the drain and goes to the bottom, I won't feel an ounce of remorse for them because they've drove this country back 100 years, and they've brought back racism and hatred and bigotry and misogyny and homophobia and every kind of phobia you can think of. They brought it back to the forefront, but there's more decent people than there are them. I really do believe that. Minorities like them can get really loud, and it can make it feel really hopeless. But we have to keep putting in the work, keep putting up the good fight, and when we do, they'll eventually fade away. And I'm never going to forget it. I'm really not. And there's certain people who, when they try to come back to our side, yeah, I understand giving people the bridge back, but I'm never going to let people say that they didn't say these things. I'm never going to let people say that they weren't for these things, because they absolutely were. But as I watch this, I see all the love for the Obamas. And then you say to yourself, when people shows up at a Trump rally, they're not showing up because they love him as much as they are showing up to punch down at other people and get off on watching him punch down at other people. That's the difference between the two sides. Anybody, both sides are the same? No, they're not. Watch this Obama Presidential Center. We're not the same, and we never will be.
I like him. His name is Tennessee Brando. I like him. I thought I had followed him. I showed it in. I need to follow him, make sure, but I can always find him. But that was good. He made me feel really hopeful. And I'm glad he said what he said about we're going to be all right, because I think it's more good people out there. And you know what made me feel good about that video that I showed you that had all those, that went viral and had all those people commenting and watching and viewing? I went to, there's something called the insights on every post that you can go and look at the stats and see. And I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute. There are overwhelmingly more people that like my video than there are comments. out there. Most of the comments were all negative. So I was like, people are liking what I'm saying way more than the ones that are not. So, like he said, this people here, there's not that many of them. They're just loud. That gave me hope. Looking at that one stat, I was like, oh my God. Because I was feeling a little bit down after that, after the way they were coming at me and whatever. So, I can handle comments, not a bad thing or anything like that. I can handle it. I knew that going to this podcast and being a Democrat that I was going to attract MAGA. But when I saw those stats, it made me feel good. I said, I got a whole lot more likes than I got negative stuff. A whole lot more. And that made me feel really, really good. So thank you, Tennessee Brando, for that. And we are going to be all right. We're going to be all right, I think. But it's going to take some work. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about why does justice feel different for Black America? Let's talk about history. Let's talk about history because before somebody clicks off this video because they think I'm giving a history lesson, stay with me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in making anybody feel guilty either. I'm interested in helping people understand because there's a big difference between guilt and responsibility. I heard people say all the time, my family didn't own slaves. I get that a lot. My grandparents weren't a part of segregation. I hear that. I didn't do any of those things. And you know what? That may be absolutely true. I'm not here to argue with your family history. I'm here to ask a different question. What responsibility do we all have for the country we're leaving to our children? Because every generation inherits something. Some generations inherit prosperity, some inherit debt, some inherit peace, some inherit conflict, but every generation has a choice. We can either ignore what we inherit or we can leave it better than we found it. That's all I'm asking. Leave it better. History isn't something we study so we can stay angry. History is something we study so we don't repeat the same mistakes. When we teach children about the Holocaust, we're not trying to make German children feel guilty. We're teaching them what hate can become if good people remain silent. When we remember September 11th, we're not trying to keep America trapped in grief. We're honoring lives and learning lessons. History matters because memory matters. And when it comes to race in America, memory still lives in a lot of family. It lives around dinner tables. It lives in church conversations. It lives in grandparents telling children, be careful, know your rights, keep your hands where people can see them. Always be respectful. Those are Black things. We still have those conversations. For some families, those conversations are about driving safely. For others, they're about surviving safely. Different conversations. Yeah. Little white moms and dads are not telling their kids, always raise your hands up. They don't have to tell them that. They don't have to have that conversation. They're different experiences, right? Neither one makes someone a better American, but pretending they're the same doesn't help us understand one another. And this is where I want to pause because I don't want this conversation to become us versus them. I reject that. I do. I don't believe that's the answer. I've met some incredible white Americans. I've worked beside them. I've worshiped beside them. I've laughed with them. I've cried with them. I've been encouraged by them, and I've been loved by them too. Some of the kindest people I've ever known don't look like me. Yeah. So this conversation is not about saying one race is good and another race is bad. That's not only false, that's dangerous. And what I'm talking about is something much deeper. I'm talking about the systems we inherit, the assumptions we absorb, and the choices we make today. Because prejudice doesn't always look like what it did 60 years ago. Sometimes it isn't loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shows up as assumptions. Sometimes it shows up in who gets believed first, who gets the benefit of the doubt? Who gets described as troubled and who gets described as dangerous? Those are questions worth examining. Not because we already know every answer, but because asking honest questions is part of improving a society. Now, let me say this. Say something to my black brothers and sisters. I don't want us to become so discouraged that we stop believing change is possible. I understand the frustration. I do. But believe me, I do. I understand why people feel exhausted. I understand why people are angry. I'm one of those. But anger cannot become our permanent address. It's not healthy. We know that. We cannot allow disappointment to turn into hopelessness, because hopelessness is exactly what makes and keeps people from voting, keeps people from mentoring, keeps people from building businesses, keeps people from believing tomorrow can be a better day. We've come too far to give up. We come too far to give up now. And to everyone listening, regardless of your race, let me ask you something. When someone tells you they've been hurt, what's your first response? Is it prove it? Or is it tell me more? Think about that, because one response builds walls and the other builds trust. You know, it builds trust. And when I go out on these podcasts and I talk about how I feel about what they did to Voters' Rights Act, and you come back to me telling me I'm a racist and a race baiter and all kinds of other stuff, and stop whining and move on, that's hurtful. It really is. So I want to challenge every one of us, including myself, to become better listeners. I've actually really been trying to do that, because I find myself, I was talking to my best friend, and I said, you know what? I do not listen sometimes. When I have a thought, sometimes I just want to push it out before the other person is finished. So I'm actively practicing listening. Let someone get a thought out. And boy, it be bubbling right there. It's like, he's so wrong, he's so wrong, he's so wrong. I need to get this out. So I got to start listening more and understanding more. So I want to challenge every one of us, including myself, to become a better listener. Not listeners who are just waiting for a chance to respond. That was me. Listeners who are willing to learn. Listeners who are willing to have their assumptions challenged. Because I promise you, there are things I don't know. And there are experiences I've never had yet. There are people I can learn from, and I hope they would extend me the same grace I'm asking you today. Now, there's one more thing I need to say. This may be the most important thing in this entire episode. Real change doesn't happen because laws change along. I say that all the time. I mean, we have laws that protected us. That's the only way that we as Black Americans were able to advance, because of the Civil Rights Act, the Housing Act, the Voters' Rights Act. All those things that helped us become humans, no longer 3/5. Real change happens when hearts change. The laws that protect us, but real change happens when hearts change. All you people are telling me to move on and quit whining. Help me make the change. Call out the racism when you see it. Stop it. Look into yourself. Are you one of those people? Hearts need to change. I mean, laws can stop discrimination, but only you, the person, can choose compassion. Laws can establish the rights, right? But only neighbors can establish trust. That's why I keep coming back to empathy. Empathy isn't weakness. Empathy is courage. It takes courage to listen when you'd rather argue. I can attest to that. Yeah. Listening. I will listen to any person that wants to try to sell me why Donald Trump is so good. I'll listen. But then I'm going to come back with some facts. I can't go with that. But I will listen. It takes courage to admit someone else's experience may be different from yours. It takes courage to say, I don't fully understand, but I want to. Like, I had some really close white friends at work. And when I discovered that they were Trump supporters, I don't know how to feel about that. Because of all the things that he does, I was like, how can you be this person and still follow this guy? I need you to explain to me why. And I want to go through some laundry list of things that he's done, and you explain to me, why is this okay? Explain to me why. What is it about him that makes you support him and his ideals? It's very hard for me. I can tell you that straight on. It's very hard for me to understand anybody that trusts Donald Trump and his vision. I don't get it. I don't get it. I can't get it. But you've got to explain to me why. But I don't fully understand sometimes, but I want to. That's the kind of courage America needs more of. Not louder voices, not nastier comments. No more outrage. And I know I'll do the nasty comments. If they come nasty to me, sometimes I go after them. I do. Sometimes they're just horrible. I'm more cynical with mine and make them feel small. I don't really like name call or use expletives, nothing like that. But I'm going to make you feel pretty small about what you said, which is not good either. That's not healthy. But I'm human, and some of that stuff is like, you don't get to say that to me. No. So we don't need nasty comments, not more outrage. We need more courage, because courage has the power to heal. And when you're speaking of healing, there's one final conversation we have. Where do we go from here? Because I don't want to end this episode just talking about pain. I want to end it by talking about hope, responsibility, about allyship, about the kind of America I still believe we can become. So we're going to finish this conversation together. So it's time for another video. So I want to play this video, I want to play this from here. This is the one about this guy here. He's a country guy. And part of the whole divide in this country was because Barack Obama was elected president. I believe that was what started a lot of these movements, which is crazy. The man is a great person. They make him feel like they said that he's the most divisive president ever. Explain that. How? So listen to this guy here. I like him. He's fun. Here we go.
Hearing the same thing over and over. I've been trying to talk to these morons out here in the sticks, and I'm telling you right now, these people out here have got this thing where they think Obama was the divider. Oh, Obama started the division. Listen, you racist? No, he didn't. Just because a black man runs for president and wins, and you get pissed off about it, that's not him dividing. That's you being a racist. It cracks me up how all of you backwoods stick white people want to act like Obama was the first divider. Why? Because he ran for president and won? No, that's not dividing. That's your hang up. That's your division. A real divider is what Trump's doing. Rigged elections. How sick do you got to be to follow a man who thinks that the United States don't have fair elections? We got the fairest elections in the world in the history of mankind. But you guys want to dirty up that because your boy don't win. It's like the fat kid running in school, always wanted to blame everybody. My shoe's untied. You cheated. You started first. No. You lost. And you don't get to claim that somebody's a division or a divider because they're black and they win an election. That's not how life works. That's not how common sense works. My God. Okay, look, I'm tired of hearing.
I like him. Isaac Crabtree, and I can imagine the kind of hate that they're getting as being white people that are allies. Some of them have talked about some of the things and death threats and all kinds of stuff. They get just as bad. I mean, if you start following us, there's going to be some complications after it, but just be ready for it. If you start becoming an ally and speaking out, I appreciate who you talk about and who you help and how you call things out. But just know that they're going to come after you badly. I've heard some of the allies talk about the comments that they get are pretty tough. So, where do we go from here? That's the question, isn't it? Not who's right, not who's wrong, not who wins the argument, but where do we go from here? Because if all we do is argue, nothing changes. If all we do is retreat into our own corners, nothing changes. If all we do is surround ourselves with people who already agree with us, nothing changes. America has never moved forward because people stayed comfortable. America moved forward because ordinary people decided they're willing to have uncomfortable conversation. Thank God for those people. Thank God for those people. And I believe that's exactly where we are today. Now, I want to speak again to every white American watching this episode, especially those of you who have stayed with me until now. Thank you, because that tells me something. It tells me you're willing to listen, even if you don't agree with everything I've said. And that's all I could ever ask. That's all I can ever ask. So if you happen to be watching this and it's a clip of the podcast and you may not get the whole story, watch the entire podcast and understand what I'm talking about. Just listen to me for a minute and understand that this is not a hit piece on white people. It's not. But it is a call out to you. Hello? Yeah. Now let me ask something to you. Not as a political commentator, which I do call myself that, yeah. Not as a podcaster, I am. Not even as a black man, but simply as another American. If you truly believe racism is wrong, don't wait for black people to always be the ones confronting it. Help us. Become an ally. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I don't mean posting a black square on social media. I don't mean changing your profile pictures for a week. I don't mean making a speech every February. I mean during Black History Month. I mean something much more difficult. It's difficult. It's going to take a little some of you away. I mean confronting racism when it costs you something. Like all of those allies that keep playing on those videos, it's costing them something. There was one lady, she was getting kind of afraid because her comments were going crazy. And there's a couple of female allies that I follow, and I notice every time they do their posting, they're walking way away from their houses in the woods. They're probably afraid because there are probably people in their household don't agree with them. But they're making their videos while walking. They're never like anywhere near their homes. They're always walking. I said, why don't they ever take a video in their homes or anything? It's kind of weird. But I think I understand. Because when it's your family member making the joke, when it's your friend making assumptions, when it's your coworker repeating stereotypes, when it's someone you respect saying something that dehumanizes another group of people, that's where courage lives. Not when it's easy, when it's uncomfortable, because real allyship isn't measured by what you say in public. It's measured by what you're willing to challenge in private. Just imagine what America would look like if millions of people decided, not in my house, we're not doing that. Not at my dinner table. Not in my workplace. Not in my church. Not in my friend group, because racism survives when good people stay silent. It gets passed from one generation to the next, but not always through hatred, but sometimes through just silence. Don't say nothing. Sometimes through stereotypes that nobody challenges. Sometimes through like a joke that nobody questions. You know what? And I'm okay with some kind of joke. Some jokes, stereotype jokes, are funny when it's coming from a comedian on a stage who's doing it just to be funny, and they present it in a way where it is funny. Because like the comedians say, just make sure that it's funny. If it ain't funny, then don't do it. Make sure it's funny. Sometimes though jokes, through jokes that you have to like call people out. Say, why would you tell that joke? That's not funny. That's not nice. Sometimes through assumptions nobody corrected. That's how prejudice survives. Not because everyone is hateful, because too many decent people decide it's not my problem. But it is our problem. All of ours. Because when one American is treated unfairly, America is diminished. When one community loses trust, America is weakened. When one child grows up believing the system will never see them fairly, America loses something. When a black boy knows that he will never be able to get stopped in a traffic stop, it's never going to be fixed. We want that to go away. We don't want to teach our boys that that's going to happen. We all lose something. We all do. Now to my black brothers and sisters, just so you know, don't get mad at me. Let me speak to you for a moment here. I know some of you are tired. I'm tired. I know some of you watched the comments and felt discouraged. Some of you chimed in. I know some of you wondered, will they ever understand? One guy was like, why are you even messing with them people? They're never going to understand. Why do you even spend some? Because I'm trying. I mean, the black people were coming at me for engaging with them, period. Yeah. But can I encourage you, don't let bitterness become our identity. I'm not bitter. I just want to help change. Don't let cynicism steal your hope, and don't allow somebody else's hatred to rob you of your humanity. I mean, we continue building, continue educating, continue mentoring, continue loving, continue voting, and continue showing up. We always do the right thing. We do. I've noticed that I go to almost all African American church. It's an African American church. Well, it is African American church. But every time our church is in a gentrified neighborhood where there's a lot of Gen X professional white people, and sometimes they'll stroll into our church, and we treat them with such niceness, and they come back. We never treat them any different. They're welcome. And we're right there in the neighborhood. Come to church. We don't care. Come worship with us. But we have to continue showing up, guys. We got to continue believing that your voice matters. We can't just stay silent either, because it does. Never let anyone convince you, I'm talking to my black brothers and sisters, that your concerns don't deserve to be heard. Never let anyone shame you into silence. But hear me. You got to speak with conviction without losing compassion. You got to stand for justice and without surrendering humanity, and continue to fight for equality without forgetting the goal is reconciliation, not revenge. Revenge is going to never heal this nation. A lot of us are still mad about things that happened throughout the years. And revenge sounds sweet, but it's not. It's not. Understanding heals the nation. Truth does, courage does, love does. And yes, sometimes love tells the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Imagine if every one of us left this episode asking one question. Was Carl right? Or was Carl wrong? Was simply, what can I do to make someone else's life a little more fair? Maybe it's listening instead of interrupting. Maybe it's mentoring a young person. Maybe it's voting. Maybe it's speaking up when everyone else stays quiet. Maybe it's admitting whatever it is. Do something, because change has never belonged to only presidents, judges, or activists. Change belongs to us ordinary people. People like you. People like me. People who decide, I'm going to leave this country better than I found it. That's the America I still believe in, and I do. And as an American, where we don't have to fear difficult conversation. In America where empathy is not seen as a weakness. I want an America where justice doesn't just exist. It feels real. For everyone, that doesn't mean we'll always agree. We won't. It's democracy. But disagreement doesn't require disrespect. Different perspectives don't require dehumanization comments, and politics should never cost us our compassion. So whether you're black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or none of the above, I want to give you a challenge. Be someone who listens. Be someone who learns. Be someone who has always the courage to challenge prejudice, even when it comes to people who look like you. Be somebody who refuses to let hatred become normal, and most of all, be someone who leaves this country better than you found it. Because that's our responsibility. Not just black Americans, not just white Americans, but as Americans. As Americans. So this is a conversation that I wanted to have, And I hope I touched something with somebody on that. But I'm not done yet. I'm still want to talk about a few more things. And one of the things was the Karmelo Anthony trial that happened. And get your thoughts on that, because that's another alarm bell for us. Because it wasn't fair. We know a person lost their life. A person thought they were defending themselves. And nobody's making that smaller. We grieve for that person. The person lost their life. But 35 years? Is it 35? Was it 30? I don't know. Anyway, it was way too many. So listen to this ally talk about the Karmelo Anthony trial. He does do a little bit of profanity. So listen to him. Let's talk about it. Here we go.
Trying to find the words on what to say about the Karmelo Anthony verdict. And so I decided to just do what I always do, and that's be as open and honest as I can be about this. I am a middle-aged white dude in East Tennessee. Grew up right on the border of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. When I was a kid, there was no black kids in my grade school. When I made it up to middle school, which where we're from was 7th and 8th grade, there might have been one black kid in the whole school. When I made it to high school, over my 4 years, I could probably count on one hand how many black kids was there. So I didn't grow up around black people or with black people. And anything that I have learned outside of where I'm from. And I have learned by listening to people and hearing them out and trying to develop an understanding of everything that was going on. All I can do as a middle-aged white dude from East Tennessee is look over and see glaring hypocrisy. I can point out things about the glaring hypocrisy, like you will see white guys in my part of the world go out of their way to defend Kyle Rittenhouse and go out of their way to crucify Karmelo Anthony. And I can call on that, and I can point to the hypocrisy. But I have no idea what it's like to be black in the United States of America, especially this day and age. So really, all I can truly say about it is that I'm listening and I'm paying attention. And the hypocrisy sickens me. And the fact that we just continue to go backwards sickens me. Because as I grew up, I tried to put so much stuff and did put so much stuff in the trash can, literally. And tried to move past so many things that I was brought up with and tried to move past so many lies that was handed down to me. And if you'd have told me back when I was in high school in the 90s, if you'd have said, hey, this is where we'll be in 2026, I said, no, ain't no way in hell we'll be there. We will have progressed past all this, won't we? I was naive in thinking that it would be better. But I think right now, more so than anything else, what people that look like me can do to help the situation the most is just listen. So just know that I'm listening. And I encourage more people to do the same.
All right, that's Tennessee Brando. I like that guy. I really like the guy. And he just talked about what I just ended on that other segment about listening. He's proclaimed the way he was raised and how he's changing, and he's trying to listen more. He's trying to listen more. That's all we're asking. For all y'all that put the little nasty comments out there for me, yeah. So this next video, guys, is this one guy. I call him, he says Trump didn't win, but he's really cussing a little bit too. But I like his take on a lot of stuff. It's conspiracy theory related, but it makes you go, really? That makes a lot of sense. But listen to what his thoughts are on a few strange occurrences with the Trump administration and a lot of things that's been going on. And tell me where you stand on what he said. Because I stand with him on a lot of that stuff. I was like, it makes a lot of sense, dude. We have no proof of some of this stuff, but I want you to hear what he says. Okay, let's listen in.
Hey there, buds. I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you. Let's play a little game. Here's the first question. Ready? You don't have to answer out loud because I can't hear you. Just think about it in your own mind. Who shot Abraham Lincoln? Got it? Okay, is it in there? All right. Who shot JFK? Who shot Bobby Kennedy? Who shot Martin Luther King? And if you're a real history buff, who shot John Lennon? Who shot Malcolm X? Who shot Reagan? Just think of those answers. Some of you that really pay close attention to these events knew the answers to all of them. Some of you maybe only knew the answers to Reagan or to Kennedy and Lincoln. Now here's the last question. Who shot Donald Trump? I'll bet you that almost none of you know that answer. Even the ones who knew the answers to all the other questions, I bet you don't know the guy's name, the child's name. Think that's a coincidence? That we have a sitting president that was shot and nobody knows the guy's name? Nobody talks about him? You don't know shit about him. You don't know his name or anything about him. Google him. Try and find a little bit of information about him. Not a lot out there. Probably a coincidence, right? Let me tell you something. The cartilage of an elderly pedophile doesn't grow back. It sure as shit doesn't grow back in a week. And it's amazing to me that all these fucking gun nuts on the right, like you love guns so much and you believe that an AR round wouldn't leave a scratch on the ear of an elderly pedophile. Sorry, I keep calling him a pedophile. I'm just trying to reiterate. He's in the Epstein files. That's why he's covering him up. He's a fucking pedophile. Just think about it. He wasn't shot. He wasn't shot, and wait for it, he didn't win. He didn't win. If you think that an insurrectionist, adjudicated rapist with 34 felonies who overturned Roe versus Wade and had people storm the Capitol and had his CEO go to jail twice that year, facing all this shit, 91 total felonies, 31 of them under the United States Espionage Act. You think that guy won all 7 swing states, the first Republican in decades to win all 7 swing states? If you think that, you're fucking dumb. Sorry. Whether you're on the right or on the left, if you believe that, you're a dumb motherfucker. He didn't win. He wasn't shot. And here's the one that everybody needs to hear. His support isn't real. It's not real. It seems big because you've seen a few rednecks in your town with flags in their yards and stickers on their trucks and the gold sneakers and the Bibles and the watches and the meme coins and the fucking chicken tenders and whatever else he's put his name on this week. The phones, the watches, the boots, all the embarrassing fucking Home Shopping Network dog shit that this fucking pedophile piece of shit con man puts his name on. I get it. There's a lot of shit out there. There's a lot of dumb rednecks with his face on their trailer. I get it. That's who supports him, and that's all. That's it. All the normal people that are remotely normal, yeah, maybe they voted for him because they just always vote R, and they're too fucking simple-minded to understand politics, and they're too fucking cowardly to go against their pawpaw or their meemaw or whatever it is. People who don't really give a shit. They think they're going to get a tax cut, or maybe they're scared of gay people or whatever, but they're not militantly behind the guy. His support is only the masked white trash rednecks who are disappearing people with a tan. That's his support. Them and the squatted pickup trucks with the guys driving them and jerking off the pictures of Trump. That's the support, and that's all. That's all it is. That's it. What you see is the support. And what you don't see is everybody that either doesn't support him or at least isn't willing to do anything about it. That's what I want you to know. That's the important part that I want every American to know. There are way more of us than there are of them. They make up less than a third, probably closer to a quarter now of the U.S. population. And of that 1/4 of the U.S. population, maybe 10 or 20% of them are willing to actually do something. It's a very small number. That's what I want you to know. I want you to not be fearful. Fuck these people. Because I want a peaceful solution to this. I really do. That's why I'm doing everything I'm doing in hopes of a peaceful solution to this. But I also understand fascism. I've studied it, read about it, watched documentaries, know a little history. Fascists don't like to relinquish power. That's why they're already trying to gerrymander the midterms. That's why he's already sending military to every city. They don't plan to relinquish power. And if and when the time comes for us to do something about that, I want you to know there are not many of them. And there are a lot of pro-democracy veterans in this country who are real patriots, who are willing to do whatever it takes to defend democracy and our Constitution. I know because they tell me. And there are a lot of tough people who aren't veterans who are willing to become veterans. So I want everyone who's a real American to take heart in the fact, and it is a fact, his support is not real. They moved the inauguration indoors because nobody was coming. That's why. Not because it was cold. Guess what? It happens in January every year. It's always cold, you dumb motherfucker. They didn't move it indoors because it was cold. They moved it indoors because the numbers were going to be embarrassing. His 100-day celebration, 1,000 people were inside celebrating him and 4,000 were outside protesting him. His military parade, Fox literally had to add applause tracks to the videos of him. You can find it. You can find it online, maybe not on Google, but on like a real browser. You can find the real video of crickets and the Fox video where they added applause because they're a fucking disinformation network. They're state media. They're Russian bullshit. On that day, 20,000-ish came to his military parade. The bleachers were empty. You could hear the wheels of the tanks creaking. That same day, 13 million people were mobilized nationwide to protest against his dirty diaper, tiny-handed, purple cankle, orange-face pedophile ass. Because his support is not real. Operate from that place.
Oh, dude. I'm sorry for all the profanity, guy, but he was so colorful with his assessment. But think about some of that stuff. Think about it. And that gives me hope because he's right. It's a lot louder than what you think it is. It's not as many people. But for some reason, they were able to get in there. And they are rushing like crazy to get every single thing they want done because they know it's going to end. It's way more of us than it is them, and it's going to end. But right now, Donald Trump has his finger on the trigger of the military and the government, and he can just about do anything. And so people are afraid to come after him, but trust and believe we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to get him out of there. And that's going to be voting, Congress doing their thing with the laws, rolling some of that stuff back. We got to get the House and the Senate back and just get that stuff fixed. It's going to be a lot of work, but we have to do it, guys. We have to do it. Yep. So, let's see. I have one more of the Karmelo opinion. Let me let you listen to this one. I think this one was good as well. And then we'll come back on the Karmelo Anthony verdict. Here we go.
Let me unfuck this issue surrounding the sentencing. People online are saying, I don't understand why everyone is mad. And keep your hands to yourself. It's simple. He needs life. How wasn't this murder? The primary issue here is not specifically his guilt or innocence. The issue is why this system keeps finding nuance when sentencing some people and using a sledgehammer when sentencing others. Karmelo was 17 years old when this happened. He was convicted and sentenced to 35 years. But Kason Allison was another Texas teenager in another fatal school stabbing. And he was also charged with murder. But he got convicted of criminally negligent homicide and got 10 years. And Jesus San Miguel, another Texas teenager, another fatal stabbing, he was found guilty of criminally negligent homicide, but he got 10 years of probation and 30 days in jail. So it's not just did Karmelo stab someone. The question is, why does one teenager get treated like a murderer, another like a tragic accident, and another gets sent home on probation? And before somebody performs their little, why does everything have to be about race routine, the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that black males receive longer sentences than white males. So this is not imagination or race baiting or people just being dramatic. It's data. And since it's relevant, a burning cross was found in Grant Park in Chicago today, in broad daylight. So spare me the fairy tale about how racism is over and people are overreacting. And the cowards that burned that cross, they didn't stand there proudly. They didn't make some brave public argument. They lit the cross and ran, because that's what these people are. They're fucking cowards. They want the intimidation of racism without the accountability of being racist. And that's the country this Karmelo conversation is happening in. So when people look at a 35-year sentence and compare it to a white teenager who got a lesser conviction and lighter punishment for the same crime and say something is wrong here, stop pretending like you need a law degree to understand the point. The point is fairness. The point is consistency. The point is that justice and sentencing should not come with an adjustment based on race. Fair sentencing should not be a partisan issue. It should not be controversial to say that two kids who commit comparable crimes should face comparable consequences. And if your response to that is anger, maybe you should ask yourself why fairness pisses you off so much.
And remember, I'm not the dark left. Together, we're the dark left, the defiant left. Please join us in helping to call out the bullshit and bring some sanity back to the conversation.
Let me
All right, that's thedarkleft.com. Nice little people to follow if you want to get some information on it. You know, they're aggressive, but he made some great points. He gave you some examples. Data, not lies, nothing made up. Data. truths. Truth, truth, truth. Okay? So, I guess you got the point of this podcast and everything. And I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish on talking on this subject. And I hope that I have put myself in a lane where people see I'm not a racist. Commenters. Trying to understand, trying to have a logical conversation with you. And I've given you some challenges. So if you're looking at a clip again and you haven't listened to the whole podcast again, listen to the podcast and understand. But don't come at me with some craziness, because I'm not going to engage with that at all. Not at all. Okay. So I want to end the podcast with this last video, which is a black congressman, I can't remember what state it is, who gave a passionate speech about gerrymandering, and he made some great points. And I want you to listen to what he has to say. And we're going to end with this clip right here. So thank you so much for joining me on Let's Talk with Carl E. Long, episode 62. And until the next episode, take the challenge. Let's start talking. Let's have some real conversations. Let's listen. Listen to one another. And maybe we can get some stuff done. Have a great evening. Here's the last video. Bye now.
Remarks with my friend from New Haven, Senator Whitfield. Let me tell you something. As long as y'all know me in this building, I have never cried race or any piece of policy or racism or any of those isms or any piece of legislation that we have ever been brought here. And I'm not doing it here. But I say this, I am sick and tired of always having to compromise to make other people happy. I'm sick of it. It's what has been happening in this country since people have been brought to these shores for 400 years. We've been compromising to make others happy, so others can feel good. We had something good here. Now we're going to change it. We're going to change it because some people, some communities, are going to have to compromise for things they have never done to them. Some of you know what redlining is. Some of you don't. Learn it. Some of you know there are areas in the communities around this country and around this state where people of color live and have been living there for a long time in uncomfortable conditions. They've been created unbankable. I'm going to say it again. They have been created unbankable by federal government, by state government, by local government, by realtors. They are unable to get loans. They are unable to get opportunities. Since 1865 to 1777, we had what you call Reconstruction, right after the end of slavery. And for 12 years, we had a democracy. We had everybody involved in the political process and the economic process of this country, and things were going very well. Black folks built their own schools. They built their own institutions. They built their own banks. They built their own schools, and everything was fine. And guess what happened in 1877? There was a compromise. The Tilden Hayes Compromise. If you don't know what it is, go Google it. And you know what happened? All that progress we had, all that good things we had about this country that was going on, it went away. It went away because of political compromise. Because some people are unhappy about what those people were doing. They were minding their own business. They was equal Americans. So what we turned into? After that, Jim Crow. Okay. Those compromised individuals, even through Jim Crow, they built their own hospitals. They built their own schools. They built their own communities. They built their own banks. And they suffered through that. And then when the country needed them to go fight wars, foreign wars, oh, we're going to compromise. We're going to allow you to fight the wars, but you're going to be in segregated units. As a matter of fact, in World War I, they said, we're not even going to train you. We're going to let France go train you. But I need you to fight for me. And you know what those people did? They did it. They did it. So they could be a part of the American dream. They fought and came home in the summer of 1919. Read about it. The Red Summer. They were hung with their uniforms on. What happened further? We had another World War. They said, okay, now we're going to desegregate the ranks. We need you to fight again. But you're going to be in segregated units. As a matter of fact, when you have nurses here, the black nurses can only treat the black soldiers. These are facts. These are facts that you need to learn about. They were compromised. They were heroes. They fought. They trained. They did everything they were supposed to do. But yet they had to compromise. I'm sick of compromising. And this bill says, compromise again. Because what we created for you, the opportunities that were redlined, we gave you opportunity. Let's give you some resources. But now we want to change it. We want to change it. I want your community to compromise again. I'm not all right. You don't have to ask me. I'm not all right. I'm unhappy because I got to compromise again. You know, I was taught no one can ride your back unless you bend it over. I'm standing up. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stand up. But I want to make sure every last person around this circle vote for this bill. I want you to vote for it. And yes, I did work on this bill to make it better. Because I know that if we don't, even the opportunity for HEDCO and other CDFIs might be able to get these resources through those non-bankable communities. Those who are suffering at the bottom of the well. Whether it comes to economics, when it comes to education, when it comes to health care, when it comes to overrepresentation in our prisons. Those folks who need the opportunity, you're gonna have to compromise some more. And then you guys, y'all figure it out. So if you feel a little uncomfortable tonight, because you have to hear from me, man, I've been uncomfortable for a long time. I've been brought up to be uncomfortable. Read about this guy named James Baldwin. He said, if you got any sense of consciousness when you wake up in this morning, you should be frustrated and angry. But I wear that smile. Even though I know I have to compromise. And the community that I represent have to compromise for opportunity. So yeah, great. We're gonna fall in line with what's required of us from DC. We're gonna erase the uncomfortable word minority from the websites. We're gonna do all that so we can get the opportunity to lend Nah. I'm going to stop so we continue to do our business. Because I know we have other folks who need business done here. And I want to get this downstairs so everybody can be happy that we did something. But trust and believe, everyone's not happy. And I'm one of them. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I said I was gone, but I wanted to make sure I make clarity on that. That was a state senator, and he was really upset about some bill that was being passed, and it was just I want you to see his passion about why we get so angry and passionate, because we always have to compromise because they don't think things out, and when things are written in a way that they hurt a group of people on purpose, we ask the question. And that's just who we are. And if you call that weak, it's not weak. It's passion. And it is coming from a place of hurt. We're tired of it. So he just embodied the whole episode today. And I just want you to listen to him. But let me say goodbye again. Thank you so much for joining this podcast. Have a wonderful week. Bye now.